Welcome to this edition of the Click and Pledge's Fundraising Command Center podcast, where we talk the why, the what, and the how in the Click and Pledge's ecosystem.
And welcome back to the Why series. We are really getting to the heart of it now. This is the final phase of this whole journey we've been on.
It really is. I feel like if the last 3 deep dives were us planning the mission, drawing the maps, today's the day we actually push the big red launch button.
That's a perfect way to put it. We're launching.
Yeah. And for anyone just joining us, we've been looking at fundraising not as, a simple transaction.
No, not at all.
We're framing it as this sacred invitation to a mythic journey, using Joseph Campbell's work, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, as our guide.
Right. And our mission, your mission, is to be the coach that invites the donor into a story that they get to finish.
And today's focus is that one critical moment, the point of commitment. We're calling this deep dive, crossing the threshold.
Which is, in our world, the ask. And we believe this is where you can use what we call the cliffhanger ask to turn someone from a passive listener into an active hero.
Okay, so let's break that down. Before we jump into the how, it's probably a good idea to do a quick refresher on how we got here.
Definitely. Everything we're about to talk about only works because of the foundation we've already laid, the tension we've built.
Right. So in our first deep dive, we started with the call to adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all about establishing the emotional gap. We used that baby shoes story idea, something short, visceral, and really specific to show the pain that exists.
Exactly. The gap between what is and what ought to be.
And that gap, that pain, it leads directly to the first big obstacle, which we covered in the second part, refusal of the call.
Which is where people get overwhelmed. The villain in our story isn't a person, it's statistics. It's psychic numbing.
Yeah, that feeling you get when you hear about millions of people suffering and your brain just kind of shuts down. You feel less, not more.
Right. And we suggested the only way to beat that is to keep the story micro. One person, one problem that feels solvable.
So you defeat that villain with specificity. Then last time, we introduced supernatural aid. This is where the nonprofit, where you come in.
But not as a hero. This is so important. You come in as the mentor. You're the Yoda.
You're the one who provides the weapon, the tool, the solution that can actually bridge that gap we started with.
So let's see where we are. We have the need, the gap. We've overcome the paralysis of psychic numbing. And we've shown that a solution, the weapon, actually exists.
All of that buildup, all that storytelling, it brings us right here to this moment.
The moment of action.
This is where we stop preparing the hero and we tell him it's time to take that first step. This is crossing the threshold.
And in all the old myths, the threshold is that line. It's the boundary between the safe, normal world and the unknown world of the adventure.
Once you cross it, there's no going back.
There's no going back. And in our fundraising framework, we are absolutely clear on this. The ask is the threshold.
It's the point of no return. The donor can't be a passive observer anymore.
And that's why it feels like the most dangerous step. Not, dangerous for us. We're just asking a question. It's dangerous for the donor.
How so?
Because it requires them to commit, to move from being a spectator to a participant in the story. They have to put their own resources, their own hope on the line.
That's a huge mental shift. We see so many organizations frame the ask around themselves. We need money to meet our budget.
Yes, that's the mentor talking about the mentor's problems.
Right. But if we're following this journey, the focus has to be on the donor. The ask becomes your story, your adventure starts right now.
Exactly. It's not a burden. It's an invitation. It's the moment they stop watching the story and they start writing the next page themselves.
Okay, so how do we make that invitation, that pull across the threshold, just completely irresistible?
We use a technique that's as old as storytelling itself. We use the cliffhanger.
The cliffhanger.
Think about it. A cliffhanger is just a deliberate, calculated failure to resolve tension. We've spent 3 steps building this agonizing tension, the gap.
And this is the key, right? This is where I think so many fundraising stories they fall flat.
They fall completely flat because they resolve the tension too early. They give away the ending.
They say something like, there's this terrible problem, and then our amazing team stepped in and we fixed it. Now you give us money.
Exactly. You've just told a nice, neat report. You haven't invited them to be a hero. You've closed the loop for them.
Let's talk about the psychology of that. Why does leaving that loop open work so well?
Well, our brains are just wired to hate unfinished business. We crave completion. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. You remember incomplete tasks way better than completed ones.
So that unresolved tension creates a kind of psychological pressure.
A pressure to act. And the ask becomes the tool that lets the donor's brain finally get that resolution, that sweet, sweet release of clicking donate.
So wait, if we're creating all this urgency, all this psychological tension, is there a risk there? I mean, how do we make sure it's ethical and not just manipulation?
That is a very fair question, and it's a vital one. The difference is in the framing. We're not making up the despair. We're just honestly reporting on the current unresolved reality of the gap.
Okay.
If Sarah really needs the medicine, then letting a donor be part of the solution isn't manipulation. It's an act of shared humanity. We're empowering them to fulfill the story's promise.
Got it. So it's not a financial request from a spreadsheet. It's a moral imperative inside a story.
You've got it. The cliffhanger gives the narrative reason for the immediate action required to cross that threshold.
Okay, let's make this real. Let's use that flash fiction example we always talk about, the pharmacy story.
Perfect. So if you're listening, just listen to how little information we need to create the maximum amount of tension. I want you to read it.
Okay, here it is. Sarah's at the pharmacy. The medicine costs $50. She has $10. The line is moving forward.
And esto PP.
Right there.
That's it. That's the whole scene.
4 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And the tension is, it's palpable. You can feel it. The gap is $40. The ticking clock is the line moving.
And here is the most critical instruction we can give you. Do not, under any circumstance, resolve that story.
Don't say, so we stepped in and gave her the money.
Never. The second you say that, the drama is over, the donor feels good about you, but they have no reason to act. Not right now.
The ask is the resolution. It has to be the next line in the story.
Yes. So you go directly from that image, Sarah, in line, to the call to action. And we suggest you say something incredibly powerful.
What happens next depends on you.
That one sentence, it changes everything. It shifts the power, the agency, completely to the donor.
You're not asking them to fund a program anymore.
No, you're inviting them to step into that pharmacy line right now and be the hero who finds that last $40. They become personally responsible for how the story ends.
That phrasing, what happens next, depends on you. It's so powerful because it assigns causality. It tells the donor, you are the missing piece.
And it doesn't matter if it's a $40 gift or a huge capital campaign. The technique is the same. Define the urgent problem, show the solution you have ready, and then stop.
Stop right before the resolution.
And then you invite the donor to be the one who writes the final word. It turns giving from, I don't know, a tax deduction into a heroic act.
When they click that donate button, they aren't just sending money. They're finishing the story. They're closing that loop in their own mind. They're crossing the threshold.
Exactly.
So to sum it all up, the magic of this cliffhanger ask is that it takes the donor from being a passive observer of someone else's pain.
And makes them the active agent who provides the elixir, the solution. We lead them right to the edge, but they have to be the one to take that final leap.
Which means we all have to go back and look at our appeals, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Here's the question I want you to take with you. If your fundraising stories are resolving the tension before you make the ask,
If you're giving Sarah the medicine before you ask for help,
how are you accidentally robbing your donors of the chance to be the hero? That unresolved tension that is their ticket into the story.
and the thing is, when a donor crosses that threshold with you, the bond is so much deeper than just a transaction. But the journey's not quite over, is it?
Not quite. The hero has faced the trial, they've crossed the threshold, but now they have to come back.
They have to return to the ordinary world and share what they've gained.
So next time, we're going to tackle that final crucial step in the arc. Return with the elixir. We're going to get into the art and the science of thank you.
It's all about making sure the donor feels affirmed as the hero and that their action truly mattered. We'll see you then. For more information about this and all Click and Pledge products, make sure to visit clickandpledge.com and request for a one-on-one training or demo. Whether you are a client or curious about our platform, just ask us, and we will gladly get together with you to chat.
And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date with all the latest and greatest features of the Click and Pledge Fundraising Command Center. We'll see you next time as we conclude the hero's journey.